one of the things I encourage people to do is to borrow other people's belief in you, because all of us have people that believe in us, but we disqualify ourselves, we discount ourselves, and we diminish ourselves.
Self-doubt, imposter syndrome.
Yes, all those things. So like, I'm not ready, I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And so our career is like, I want to take you here. And we're like, I'm going to stay put. I'm not going to move.
Safe. People like to play it safe.
I want to play safe. It's like I want to be in familiar discomfort instead of unfamiliar discomfort.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Welcome back to the podcast, where I bring you the best and the brightest from all the business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Folks, I am thrilled with the way things just work in life. Rachel and I have been LinkedIn buddies for a long time, and Rachel just said, Rachel Druckenmiller, anybody out there not playing along, I'm going to link her up over here, that we haven't really had like a real chat. So we are going to have that real chat for you guys right here for the first time. In fact, watch this. I'm going to do something crazy.
Let's do it.
I'm not even going to look up. I'm not even.
Stop the presses.
No parachute, guys. We're going to show you guys how this is done in the real world. So I've admired you from afar on LinkedIn. You're a voice of intelligence, a voice of reason, a modern voice in this world of leadership, what it means, what care is, and a word that you talk about all the time is curiosity. So I want to start there. And I'm curious. Tell us what Rachel is all about, and how do you bring joy to this world professionally?
So I am a catalyst who unleashes what's possible in people. I'm a soothing gut punch.
A soothing gut punch.
So like, I like to be a positive provocateur. So there's people that are provocative just for the sake of like getting under people's skin. I like to be positively provocative by asking questions that help people get more clarity about themselves, about what they think, about what they want, and about the people around them.
In your bio, you use the word curiosity, which I mentioned before. And for me, that is one of the single greatest trait that I look for in a friend, my wife, romantic partner, candidates, partners that I work with. How do you define curiosity?
I think curiosity, so I get the definition from my dad. So my dad's like my Yoda, and he's like 4.5, so he's like...
So he physically looks like Yoda also. Insert Yoda graphic here on the table.
And he says that curiosity is noticing without judgment.
Let that one sink in for a minute. Noticing without judgment. Because otherwise, you're being Judge Judy, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like the second there's judgment in the equation, curiosity has left the building.
How did he instill that in you from a young age?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I grew up, my dad would like watch Oprah, listen to Tony Robbins all the time. He works for himself. He says he's terminally unemployable. So
I feel that.
He's a management consultant. And so I just grew up in this environment where I saw him creating a life for himself. And I never saw him hate work. I never saw him complain about his job. He was always reading something. He was like the extended cut DVD version guy. He had to get the 10 hours of footage behind the 2-hour movie. He had to know everything. And so he modeled it. Like when curiosity is modeled, it's more impactful. So I grew up with somebody who just wanted to know and understand and go deep and explore. And so it was
in your blood.
It's in my blood. It's in my DNA.
So let's talk about your career path a little bit. Let's walk through. This is your life. How did you get to where you are today? Because I want everyone out there to understand your background. Which, let's be honest, what gives you the authority to stand on stages at SHRM and talk about this world that we live in?
So I worked in benefits consulting. So I'm what's called an intrapreneur, which is not talked about very often. People talk about like you're an entrepreneur or you work for somebody else.
Well, let's define intrapreneur for everyone out there.
Yeah.
Intrapreneur.
So it's somebody, this is my definition. I don't know if it's the exact definition, but it's like somebody who works for another person, but takes the creative license and liberty of somebody who works for themselves.
Right. It's like an internal entrepreneur.
Yeah. So like I made up my job. So I graduated with a degree in psychology. I worked at a benefits consulting firm. Nobody says I want to work in insurance when I grow up. And I didn't either.
No one does.
It's like nobody. They just like fall into it and then they stay there for 30 years.
Yeah,
I know because I worked with them.
Right? They're called lifers.
They're lifers.
But you come at it from a different perspective
I
as
do.
well, because you come at it from an advanced education perspective. Yeah. You're also seeing it from the humanities perspective and an HR perspective.
Yes.
What did you see in corporate America that you just disdained and you're like, I'm done with this life?
Well, especially, so I was the director of well-being and employee engagement.
It's supposed to be like a
company.
Good person job.
Yeah, and I made it up, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm a wellness coordinator. They're like, what gives you the qualifications?
So
to
you're a
do
gym
that?
coach.
Yeah, well, my husband's a PE teacher, which is hilarious. So like we sort of
Right.
are in a similar space, but he's with kids, I'm with adults. So like, the thing that frustrated me a lot was that I saw people paying lip service to different things. So it's like, we care about people.
Buzzwords.
And then we just laid off 20% of the workforce, but here's some apples. And I was like, no.
Yeah, and the CEO just got a $20 million bonus. Yeah.
I'm like, we have to, or what I would see in the wellness space especially, is people do all the things they're supposed to do to get their points for their incentive program. Everyone becomes a marathon runner the last month of the plan year. And I was like, did you really though? And people resent it. And the people that really need help aren't getting it. And it's like, the managers have more influence on these people's health and well-being than whether or not they had enough glasses of water today. So why aren't we talking about that?
Why aren't we talking about that?
So that is something that I would say started to really get at me, that a lot of things we were checking the box. We were like, what's going to look cool? And a Facebook picture, having a slide in the office. Nobody stays at a company or goes and works there because there's a ping pong table or a jukebox or a slide.
No, I mean, even cold brew on tap, people. As much as I love cold brew, that is not culture. So Rachel, how do you define culture?
Well, there's somebody named Rosie Ward who was very influential for me early on in my
I've heard her name.
career in the space. And I think I get my understanding of it from her. So it's sort of the undercurrent of beliefs and practices and behaviors and values that sort of direct direct an organization about how they want to show up and how they want to treat their people. So the beliefs and values and practices are like at the core of what is culture, is the things that we do, how we treat people, how we show up.
I love that definition. And I would add a little spin to that too, from the employee perspective is, do I feel valued as an employee? Do I feel like my contributions are being valued? And do I have a clear career trajectory in my organization? And when you put those pieces together, I think that's what culture is, right? Because culture is not, before the pandemic, many people define culture just as you said. Oh, this is the coolest place. We have so many free snacks. They give us a lunch stipend, and I could order from, DoorDash. That's not culture.
No, it's not. And the people shape it, right? And so it's the way that you're treating people. Do they feel seen and heard and supported and celebrated and valued? And if they do not, you are not going to have a healthy culture.
No, not at all. So in your current, let's talk about your current practice.
Yeah.
Was it hard for you to move away from corporate America into doing your own thing? Let's talk a little bit about Rachel's journey to being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So part of it is, one of the things I encourage people to do is to borrow other people's belief in you. Because all of us have people that believe in us, but we disqualify ourselves, we discount ourselves, we diminish ourselves.
Self-doubt, imposter syndrome.
Yes, all those things. Like, I'm not ready, I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And so our career is like, I want to take you here. And we're like, I'm going to stay put. I'm not going to move.
Safe. People like to play it safe.
I want to play safe. It's like I want to be in familiar discomfort instead of unfamiliar discomfort. So
people know the pain that they know. Right?
Yes.
I'd rather deal with this pain that I know
than one you don't.
Interesting.
So like that for me was where I was. I burned out in 2017. I was the director of well-being. 2 years earlier, I had been named by a group called the Wellness Council of America as the #1 health promotion professional in the United States.
That's a nice accolade, but it comes with.
It was nice, but it came with pressure.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like, oh, they said you're the best, which means you have to always be the best, and you can't.
How do you quantify the best at your job? I don't mean that as a joke. I mean, seriously, how do you quantify that?
Well, they had like an application. It was like quantitative,
a
qualitative.
Or...
You had to like give assess your people, give data about your programs, their impact. I had to write essays and all kinds of stuff.
How'd you know you were burnt out? What was that feeling like?
Oh, because
physically, mentally?
I was like, could not function. So I had a dream that I was drowning.
That's scary.
Then I had trouble with my memory. So I'd like be in the middle of conversations with people and just my brain would just short circuit.
That's not our age.
And then I was like, I'm not sure
that
this should
old.
be happening yet.
I'm not that old.
And then you don't want to look that up on Google. And then
you don't want to Google your symptoms.
But I went to my doctor. My doctor said something really smart that a lot of us don't want to hear, especially in HR. He said, maybe you're doing too much. When I ignored him because I did not like that answer. So then 2-3 months later, I got really sick. I lost my voice. I had swollen lymph nodes. I had like a sore throat,
Right,
so couldn't swallow.
Glands being over.
It was the worst.
My wife had that when she was taking her law. Yeah.
It was the worst. So then
sick.
I did all the things I knew to do, and I was exhausted. And I went to my doctor, and he was like, "Would you say this was brought on by work, or that you brought this on yourself?"
It's a deep question to ask.
It's a deep question
And for
on
you to answer.
Valentine's Day. And
Thanks, buddy.
And the answer, I was like, thanks. I came in here to get like hit over the head again. I already feel like garbage. But that was the question I needed. And then he tested me for something called Epstein-Barr virus, which is an acute form of mono.
Right.
And I tested positive for it. And I was like in a really bad spot for the better part of that year.
And this is when you were still full-time employee.
Full-time employee as a director of well-being.
And how did the company treat you during that time?
Well, I was afraid to do something that I think a lot of us are afraid to do, which was to like ask for what I needed. So it was just one of the reasons
time off.
I talk about unmuting yourself is because a lot of us mute, we silence because we're afraid of a repercussion. So my boss was the CFO. And I emailed him and I said, this is what's going on. Left untreated, the doctor I'm working with said this can lead to things like lymphomas.
Yeah.
So I need to take a break and I need support and I need to change my schedule. And I pressed send and I was terrified. And they wrote back and they said, I've been there for a decade. And they're like, whatever you need.
You're part of the family here. I
whatever
don't like to say family and work. I know it's not cool these days. You know what? I'm going to make a bold statement here. I know work's not your family because you can't fire your family and work can fire you. But the feeling of a family is important in the workplace at times. And feel cared for. And I think that's what we talk about with family.
Yeah.
And that care could be broken. And I don't want to go down that path yet. So they give you the time you need. Kind of went on a left turn there. They give you the time you need. How long afterwards till you went on your own?
2 years. So
2
2 years. And it got to the point where my own coworkers were like, when are you leaving? And I was like, what do you mean?
Were you doing like more of these type of things, like more talking?
I started to speak. I did my first keynote in 2016 at the same wellness conference that I had gotten the award from the year earlier. And I just got asked to do, I just said yes. So I think one of the lessons I've learned in my life is when an opportunity shows up, I learned to accept the invitation. Like we get invitations all the time,
right.
Professionally, personally. And I'm somebody who makes a choice to accept the invitations instead of questioning them or asking myself whether or not I have what it takes. Somebody else thinks I'm qualified, so I'm going to borrow their belief in me and I'm going to say yes.
Hey everybody, Adam here. Today's podcast is brought to you by the team at Fountain. Fountain is your full-service, frontline workforce management platform. I have to tell you, Fountain's offerings are some of the most robust I've seen from any product in the space. They offer full solutions for recruiting, hiring, and retention. They are truly a one-stop shop focused on the frontline workforce. They also create informative content using their data. For example, they analyze a bunch of data from their fast food clients and create a trend report you can download now on their website. They also have a new ebook out called Frontline Voices. It's a lot to dive into, so certainly check it out. And you can learn more at fountain.com, linked in the show notes. Tell them Adam sent you. Thanks.
Let's talk about unmuted. That's kind of your jam. That's kind of your thing. Break it down for us.
Break it down.
So
there's a psychology professor named Dana Jack, and she talks about this concept of self-silencing. And when we self-silence, we don't speak up and express what we think or want or need or feel because we're afraid that other people are going to reject us, that they're going to judge us. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to cause conflict. We
want to just keep even keel. Under the radar.
A lot of HR professionals. I mean, a lot of people in general, but especially in HR, because HR is like, I got to make sure everybody else is okay.
Right. It's a whole analogy of put the oxygen mask on you should put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you take care of everyone else. Be your best self, right?
So like for me, I muted myself for so much of my life, my voice, my energy. I mean, if you'd met like 9-year-old Rachel, you'd be like, this is not the same human. Like there's no way. There's no way. So I spent a lot of my life muting myself emotionally, creatively, relationally. And I got to the point, it's been a progression over the past 20 years of coming to this place of stepping into more what I refer to as like joyful aliveness and confident expressiveness.
Joyful aliveness. So how do you take what you've learned and experienced and teach people to recognize the flags within themselves so they could course correct?
So one question I like to ask people to think about is, what is the cost of you muting yourself?
What is the cost of you muting yourself?
What's the cost? Like who's affected? Like you don't speak up, you don't share, you don't contribute because of your own hangups in your head. Who misses out? What doesn't happen? What contribution is lost? Because you're sitting there judging yourself.
Right.
What's lost? There's something lost.
But these are tough questions.
I know.
And it takes a lot of radical self-awareness that a lot of people don't have because they're scared of the truth. They're scared to face their fears. They're scared of the unknown. And the cliche that I love because it is true, growth is on the other side of fear. Growth is on the other side of your comfort zone. I'm really stepping into that. And once you embrace it, and it starts with baby steps.
Yeah.
So what's a good first step for someone to kind of push their limits as far as, unmuting themselves?
So I think one question that's sort of the cousin to the one I just asked would be, what becomes possible? If you unmute yourself, what becomes possible? If you show up, if you speak up, if you express yourself, like, only think of the best case scenario, not the worst.
A lot of people have that. I'm guilty of that too. I'm always thinking worst case scenario.
But it's like, let's imagine for the better. Like, what could become possible? What contribution could be made? What impact could you have? Who could you influence and in what way? So I think about that. But I also think most people, you mentioned a lack of self-awareness that people have. So there's a couple of questions people can ask themselves and other people in their life. So one is, I invite people a lot of the times in the keynotes I do to ask themselves, without being humble, what is something about yourself that you're proud of, that you value, that you appreciate? How would you answer that question?
Without being humble?
And the reason I say that is because...
not like a quantifiable achievement?
So without being humble, meaning a lot of people, especially women, have been told our whole lives, don't toot your own horn, it's unbecoming, don't do that.
Right.
So I have to say, without being humble, like, if you were your own biggest fan and advocate, and you could say this without shrinking back or without apologizing, that's basically another way of saying without apologizing,
right,
without shrinking back, what is it about yourself, something about yourself that you're proud of, that you value, that you appreciate?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I haven't been fired in 7 years since starting my own business.
It's amazing.
And no one's ever going to fire me.
It's a great feeling.
And they can't. And it's a great feeling. That's my security blanket. And that's why I went out on my own and launched my own business. Because we have clients.
Sure.
And clients could fire you.
They can fire you.
But they can't fire me from NHP Talent Group.
No.
They can't fire me from the podcast.
No.
They can't do that. And for me, that's a great security ever. And I'll be honest, and recruiting's been rough in the last couple of years. And there's times I considered going back and working in-house at a company. And that scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And when I try to talk to my wife about that, because nothing wrong with anyone out there who works W-2 to the lifeblood of this world, right? Like, but there's something about being an entrepreneur for a long period of time. Not these fly-by-nights who say they are, but really building and running and managing a business. It's a mindset too of, this is my business. I've not worked for anybody in a long time, and that's scary.
It's scary.
I mean, would I do anything for my family? And God forbid, of course I would.
Yeah.
I would do the most remedial things ever if that's what meant paying the bills. But the fear of actually that's not what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm proud of, among other things.
So you bet on and believe in yourself.
I took some very key words of advice. I always tell my story from Gary Vee. He said, stop focusing on the things you suck at and double down on your strengths. And I took the double down very literally, and I always reinvest in myself. And it's actually pretty crazy.
Yes.
I found that even at the lowest times from a business perspective, that's the time to double down financially, make that investment, right? Bring on the additional resources. I believe in myself. I want to tell you one thing, if I didn't believe in myself right now, I probably wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be working with Evan right now. I wouldn't be here working with Fountain. I do that because I believed in myself and I doubled down at a time when I need it, but I've already had that lesson once before.
Yeah.
So I knew what to do.
Yep.
But a lot of people don't.
The investing in yourself, my dad always told me, he said, no one can take away from you what you learn or how you grow or develop. No one can take that from you. And that was you. That was the catalyst for me. It was like leaving my job. I signed up for professional speaking training in 2018.
Scary.
And I called my husband. I said, do you trust me? Because I'm about to wipe out our bank accounts. Pay for
Yeah.
this.
I mean, this is good. This is a scary proposition. What was the TED journey like for you?
The TED journey, that's something I always wanted to do.
No.
And I did a TEDx talk on my 39th birthday.
On your birthday?
On my birthday.
And I've not watched your TEDx talk, so I can't even talk about it.
We're talking about some of it here. So
give it, tell us about were you a first ballot in, or was there rejections along the way?
There was one event that I got rejected from, but the one that accepted me, they had 300 applicants and they chose 8 people.
Wow.
So, which I didn't know until after I was selected. In Rockville, Maryland, outside of DC.
And very high level, what did you talk about? Being unmuted?
Yeah, how self-silencing is sabotaging us. So when we don't speak up, when we silence ourselves, when we hold ourselves back, all these areas of our lives, it holds us back from doing the things that we're meant to do and the contribution we're meant to make. So I sang in it, I sang. But
we're going to get to that. And what year was that?
Last year, 2023.
That's an incredible accomplishment, and kudos to you.
Thanks.
Could you do that keynote like this still? And do you still take parts of that for your keynotes now?
Oh, well, I would redo my own TED Talk. I mean, because I'm so
wait. But everyone says it was great, but you're like, wait a minute, I would
redo it.
You would redo it.
I want to do another one. Because I have another concept of the last third of my keynote now that I'm going to turn into a TED Talk.
Let's give us a little alpha here. What's that going to be about? Come on. For the 4 people that watch the podcast, something.
Accepting the invitation. Because that piece, to me, I think is something everyone can connect with, because everyone has opportunities that show up that they say no to. And it's like one yes can be the catalyst that takes you on a totally different path.
I love that.
And I really feel that way about my own life and other people I talk to.
So I believe in that, and I also think it's a little bit of a spin on that. Yes, I believe in that, saying yes to opportunities. But I've also, from a time, and it's separate but related, also the power of saying no.
Yeah.
And I believe the power of saying no at a certain point to keep you focused down your path, eliminating wasteful time.
Yep.
Right? So finding the balance of those 2 opportunities. So Rachel, let's bring it home here. You and I could talk for hours here. What's keeping you up at night these days?
All the things I want to do that I haven't yet done.
And there's a difference between that and regrets, right? It's not regretting something, it's just things that you haven't done yet, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've always had, there's a place I refer to as restless discontent. Like, I'm always in this spot where I'm writing a book right now, I'm working on more music. I have a dream of being on the Kelly Clarkson show in the next 9 to 12 months.
So let's put it out to the universe. I know Kelly Clarkson is a big fan of the podcast. Is she playing tonight? Did I hear that? Tuesday, tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Are you staying for that?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Who do we know over at the Kelly Clarkson show? Do we know anyone there? Can we get her on the Kelly Clarkson show? Evan White we're going to talk to. You know some people at Kelly Clarkson? We're going to make this happen. So we're going to manifest it. You heard it here, folks. Today's the 24th day of June, 2024. I'm sitting here with Rachel. She is going to be on the show. We're going to play this back in 9 months. You're going to be on the show, and you're going to be like, holy shit, I just talked about that on the podcast, because we made it here happen today, and I believe in that. Leave us with some alpha. What are you working on? Tell us about the book. Do you have a working title yet?
I do. It's a little, I mean...
Give us a little bit of alpha here. Give us a little bit.
So, I mean, it's really about helping people unlock their clarity, confidence, and courage through the power of curiosity so that they live a life of greater fulfillment.
Yes.
And that, for me, is what it's about. Like, there's so many people that have so much to offer the world that aren't, they're like holding it back. They're keeping it right here. And then they get to the end of their life and they wonder why they don't feel the way they want to feel. And there are so many people that are in that spot, and I don't want them to be. I want to light a fire to their butt, and I want to remind them of their own worth and value, which is why, like, the words, you are somebody, you matter, you are enough, were meaningful enough for me to put in a song, right? Like, I wanted to tell people, like, you are somebody, you matter, you enough. When you believe that, then you will do these things.
And how much, when do you do your songwriting and singing? Like, you're finding the time for that?
It's just whenever it comes to me. Like, I didn't know how I don't read music and I don't play any instruments. So for context, when people are like, I can't do that, I'm like, well, you just find other people that are complimentary.
Right. So you like lyrics and melody, like kind of hum them out a little? Like, what's your process?
It's been different for every song.
Oh.
Yeah. So the song I'm proudest of that I think most connects to an HR audience is called Light Bulbs. And it's about checking on the light bulbs in our lives. So the people that are shining brightly, so like some of the lyrics are like, check on the light bulbs, you know who they are, the ones that burn brightest, the ones that ignite us, they live like a spark. Check on the light bulbs before they go out. We don't see them dimming the light they're emitting until they fade out.
I love it. That's the acoustic version here, folks.
Spoken word. I don't do spoken word very often.
Spoken word. We're having Deaf Poetry Jam on the podcast here. So let's bring it home here. Rachel, what is the single greatest piece of advice that you've received in your life that you take action on every day? It could be a mantra, something you wake up just feeling. What gets Rachel going in the morning?
So I would say something that really speaks to me. Can I say two things? What is meant for you will not miss you. May not happen in the timing that you want it to.
It's going to come.
But it's going to come. I believe that in my core. What is meant for you will not miss you. And then something related to the invitation piece that I like to remind people of when they're doubting themselves is that an invitation is an indication of a qualification.
Let that sink in, folks.
You get invited. Somebody thinks you're qualified. Say yes.
Say yes.
Say yes. Stop doubting yourself. Like,
open yourself up to opportunities.
And courage is contagious. And the more you say yes to the things you don't think you can do, and the more you show yourself that you can do it, the more courageous and confident you will feel to say yes to the next thing.
I love it. And last but not least, Rachel Druckenmiller, when you look back on your life and you think about those tough times and you think about those challenges and you're to pull yourself up and dig deep, and harness that inner tenacity to pull you up, out, and forward. And now you sit here, gratitude, respect, this life, this family, this business. You're changing and impacting people's lives. What is your compass? What is your beacon? Rachel Druckenmiller, what is your North Star in life?
Dude, talking about heavy things to say.
I've done 395 of these. This is how I close every one of them out. It's my Freebird. Play Freebird. This is it.
I would say for me, from the time I was little, I was in an accident 4 years ago that I could have died from. I was hit by a pickup truck.
Jeez.
When I was running across the street, and I broke my back.
Oh.
And 6 weeks into COVID.
Wow.
And when you have something like that happen, when you realize that there was a chance that you might not have, that there are people that go through that and don't make it through that, you, I believe, owe your existence to making a transformational impact in any way that you can, because this is a gift.
Second chance.
And I believe that my life is a gift, and I believe that I am here in this moment at this time for a reason, and I don't want to waste it. I don't want to waste it. And that's why I do what I do, because I want to remind other people about how much they matter and about how much they are worth. And I don't want them to waste their life either. That's why I do this.
Well, I it's not a podcast if I don't make somebody cry. But I want to thank you for being open and vulnerable and sharing that moment with us, because that speaks volumes of who you are and your authenticity, and you practice what you preach, and you're making a difference in this world. I want to thank you so much for joining me on this proper podcast episode. Where can folks find you? Where can they connect? Where can they learn more?
Well, LinkedIn, where we met however many years ago. RachelDruckenmiller.com. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Spotify. I have a music video out on YouTube.
What?
Get out of here.
You got to link it up.
And on Instagram at Unmuted Life. Those are all the places.
I absolutely love it. So we might as well do a proper close here. And everybody out there listening, if this show resonated with you, leave a review, rating. It goes a long way. You know where to find out more at thepodcast.com. Follow us on all the social media channels. Check out at NHP Talent on Instagram, YouTube at The Podcast. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Thank you, Fountain. Thank you so much for having us here today. Back to Sherm.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search The Podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.